Yes, Kathy.
Today is Tuesday, February 22nd. The time is 6:30 p.m. This is the regular scheduled meeting of the Rockport City Council. The meeting will be held in person at the training room of the Rockport Service Center, 2751 State Highway 35 bypass, Rockport, Texas. For social distancing guidelines and use the video conferencing application Zoom. These actions are being taken to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Video conferencing capabilities will be utilized to allow individuals to address the City Council. Members of the public can participate in the meeting remotely via Zoom. Public participation is valued, and citizens wishing to express their views on any topic or agenda item can electronically submit a citizen participation form in order to register to speak by going to the City of Rockport website. Or attending the meeting in person, register before the meeting begins. Same time, citizens should also provide written comments to the City Secretary by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting. The Mayor will read the comments and they will be summarized in the minutes of the meeting. Take a roll call for attendance. Ward 1.
Here.
Ward 2.
Here.
Ward 3.
Here.
Ward 4.
Here.
Mayor here. I note the presence of a quorum. Call the meeting to order. Please join Councilmember Jackson.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome. Agenda item number 3, presentation, Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, certified professional designation. Kaycee Eddins. Ms. Eddins, I saw you sneak in here.
You can leave it. It'll catch you.
Yeah, let me go for it.
You get that one up there too?
Yeah, okay.
Front and center.
This is one of those really fun things that we get to do. Kaycee has been working in the HR department for now 45, 50 years.
Yeah. Fred.
But she has achieved the SHRM Certified Professional Certificate. And I believe in addition
You have to have so many years of. Once you're in front of the camera. You have to have several years of experience plus education to be able to even qualify.
and you currently are contact point for all employees?
Yes.
And you also work with all potential employees?
Yes.
You do all the screening applications?
Yes.
And does it very competently. We're very proud of Kaycee. It's my pleasure to present this to you, and I think I want to get a council. You want to join us? What's your? Kaycee's family did it also. Congratulations. In spite of where you tried it, she still did good. Moving on to item number 4, citizens to be heard. At this time, comments limited to 3 minutes will be taken from the audience. Persons who are assigned a speaker's card located on the table provided at the training room of the service center and delivered to the city secretary before the meeting begins. or written comments received by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting on any subject matter that is not on the agenda will be read by the mayor and summarized in the minutes of the meeting. Persons wishing to address the council and who have registered using the citizen participation form will have up to 3 minutes to speak. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, the councilman may not discuss or take action on any item that has not been posted on the agenda. While civil public criticism is not prohibited, disorderly conduct or disturbance of the peace is prohibited by law shall be prosecuted or terminated for this time to speak. And I have one form. Kristie Rutledge.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. You have a lot of things on your agenda tonight, and I want to take a couple of minutes and citizens to be heard to just set the backdrop for you. You all had a really tough summer. You had a tough fall. You made some really hard personnel decisions, and you made the right decisions. And it seems like we're fast tracking down that same path under that previous city manager as fast as we can. All of his initiatives are coming off the checklist and being presented to you as fast as they can. I met with the city manager a few weeks back, and I had a list of things that could be done, and I've talked with you about them to improve our relations. You all know that the City Hall petition that was thrown out has pitted the taxpayers against this city staff. That decision was really detrimental to our community. But we want to go forward. And the way to go forward is for transparency. The way to go forward is for full citizen involvement. That is going to require one of the things that I presented to your city manager a few weeks back. And that's 30 days notice on all these giant legal documents. You all are considering tax notes, plan of finance presented to you right as the agenda item is opened up. This is not right. You can say no. And in addition, you have the comprehensive plan, 444 pages, presented in 3 days. Lots of changes in there. You slow it down and give 30 days for yourself and for everyone else to consider these big plans. It's up to you. You set the pace. Our elected representatives, not the city manager and not the previous city manager. You all set the pace. So make your motions wisely, make your decisions wisely. You are not in a rush to do anything. You are in a, it's incumbent upon you to be responsible to your taxpayers, to your voters, the people who elected you. Because you were not elected by a political lobby. You do not work for the city manager or the finance director or the mayor. You work for the citizens of Rockport and the people who elected you. So remember that and slow it down tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rutledge. Moving on to the consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member so requests, at which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Council, does anyone wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
No, sir.
No.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion from Mr. Brundrett, a second from Mr. Jackson. Roll call. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. Thank you. Moving on to item number 10 on the regular agenda. Deliberate and act on first reading of the ordinance granting a conditional use permit for development of an RV park on property located at 1411 West 12th Street, also known as 12.32 acres of land out of portions of Lot H, portions of Lot 43, Block 251, Ford and Swilkheimer subdivision located in the city of Rockport, Aransas County, Texas, subject to compliance with conditions stated within this ordinance, as well as those stipulated in the City of Rockport Court of Ordinances, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Now, I do have some people that want to speak. Andrew Kane.
Andrew Kane, 2106 Lakeview Drive. Thank you, Mayor. Council. I take rezoning requests very seriously because the existing property owners have invested in property and improvements knowing what the zoning would be next to them. The main concern of those in opposition is increasing the flooding in the area and property values. I was disappointed to not see elevation certificates at various points across the existing property in the stormwater runoff plan for this development. Those are just basic items that need to be included in any developmental plans, especially in Rockport, and especially if you're trying to rezone from a single family to a conditional use permit for an RV park. I don't care if you are Mark Uhr, do your homework, do your basic homework, and then come to council with a complete proposal. I will add, I would not be a no after this information lacking is presented in the future. To those worried about increased flooding, I would add that a well-designed stormwater runoff plan, the existing body of water, or professionally engineered detention pond would actually lessen the flooding risk in the area. The immediate impact of stormwater would be grouted and detained to slowly release over hours or even days, depending on how it's designed. An RV park is not like the downtown Anchor project. It does not just pave over the entire area. In contrast, an RV park leaves lots of permeable soil in the park. A well-designed landscape plan can also require mulch beds for new vegetation that actually act as a sponge and will help absorb water. I don't know about Rockport, but everywhere we develop, we're required to follow the water code and not allow any of our storm water to leave our property without being routed into an engineered detention pond and then released into the surrounding ditches slowly. That's responsible development. The second concern I heard was decreased property values. Well, that's possibly more valid than flooding if it's required to do it properly. I would suggest an 8-foot cedar privacy fence surrounding the property. It will almost completely hide it. Then require screening with trees on the property perimeter. I do believe in property rights, and we should all be able to develop our property to our benefit as long as we follow the rules and do so in a manner that doesn't adversely affect our neighbors. Let's get over this negative opinion of RV parks. They are not trailer parks, and there are many existing trailer parks that need code enforcement. How many of y'all have spent time in a well-designed RV park lately? They are nice. It's called glamping. That means glamorous camping. These new RV parks are not cheap to develop and generally have nice amenities. They attract visitors with expendable income via tourism. They help support our local economy and business. As they drive, we're told there's $60,000 to $500,000 rigs here to winter. RV parks are also one of the best methods to bring affordable housing to our workforce. Let me tell you about some of the guests in RV parks I manage. There are traveling industrial workers 20 miles south of here, pilots and students from the George Bush International Airport, homeowners who have sold their home and in the process of building a new one. Winter in Texas to join our clients, families on vacations, young families saving up to buy a home, local workforce service workers who cannot afford the extremely high rents available in today's market. I urge you to invite this project back, but with the details if they want to be taken seriously. I would not approve without the important information or requirements that I have mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Jeff Hutt.
Jeff Hutt, 2201 Prairie Road. On this conditional use permit, is it going to go, once the property is sold, does the conditional use permit, is it removed from the property?
The conditional use permit?
Yeah, the conditional use permit, is it removed from the property?
No, if it's in use. and
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
used, it stays with the property so long as the use is not discontinued for a year or more.
Okay. Okay. During the whole RV thing that we had, TACO, which is the Texas Association of Campground Owners, came down and they were very interested in our case because all across small towns in like Texas and I guess probably America, like, you know, people are trying to force these RV parks out because of lack of misunderstanding and maybe they don't generate short-term rental funds. But what they suggested, they were really keen on working with the city because it's in their own best interest to have a nice RV park because they don't want to look bad, so they set the industry standards. And they suggested a list of industry standards. One was the SAM's, Good Sam's standard, and another one was the National Fire Code, and this would allow roads and things like that to be laid out in certain fire hydrants. So we're not trying, so y'all aren't trying to guess each time something like this comes up, but there's national standards, and I think you can liken this to building standards set by the building codes people. You yourselves don't go in every time and set the building standards, because nor should you, because most of you don't know, and, most on council, but you go to the professionals, and this would be along those lines. So what you would be doing is creating just this guideline that you would follow that's national standards, and it would take a lot of the uncertainty out of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hutt.
More citizens to be heard.
No, but I need to say, then it'll be your turn. I can't see you from here, but I'll try.
Okay.
I'm Carey Deitrich, community planner. This is a rezone, and with the rezone, it's just that, use of property. Now, when they're ready to develop, they'll have to come back to us with their plans and their drainage plans, engineered drainage plans, and would all have to get approved also by our engineer. So now is not the time to do that. This is just the rezone. And also, we already have those rules in play. The fire code was adopted, the 2018. Widths are determined by that. And in the new RV ordinance coming to you, all of those things are being addressed. I did look at the Taco printouts, and they have some really good standards. But that is coming. But at this point, the CUP is for the purpose of doing the RV park because we don't have a zoning section just for RV parks. Do you have any questions for me before I wander back?
Council, any questions?
Oh, a CUP is a conditional use permit that they have, I believe, a year to activate the CUP and get it going. And once it's complete, it stays with the property. Now, if they sell the property and it's still in use, CUP stays with it. If they abandon the use and they move all the RVs out and nobody does anything with it for a year, then the CUP is negated and it reverts back to the original zoning. Okay?
Yeah, I think I remember we had some people that had applied for a CUP, it was granted, and then Harvey hit, and then they had to come back and reapply because of the year it expired. So they got 12 months.
Well, and the new RV ordinance protects from that specific problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Well, that is my question. When's the RV ordinance supposed to come back?
We're working on it. It's hopefully soon.
My concern is
That's
to,
not.
well, this concerns, like I said, makes some basis on my decision, so it does pertain to that. So my question, I'm not asking the RV, I just, with the conditional use permit, if they get that conditional use permit and then we come out with an RV ordinance, does that, so they're gonna be grandfathered in basically?
Yes, they've got the cut.
So they have the cut.
Now, if they want to modify their cut, add units, they would have to come back and get it rezoned to the RV park.
And is that standard practice that you guys would, to bring us a rezoning without any information about what's gonna be happening on that property until afterwards? And then you guys will just say, okay, that's good to go.
Yeah, they don't really provide all their engineering and stuff until they know they're gonna get the zoning. I mean, they don't spend all that money if they're not gonna get the zoning. So it's pretty standard.
Yeah, it's up there.
But we will have it back to you very soon.
Want to make a comment?
Sure.
Good evening, everybody. Mark Uhr, I'm the broker representing my client on this conditional use permit. Like we've said in previous meetings, the expense that it takes to make all this work for city approval is pretty hefty. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that we're not going to get our conditional use permit unless we meet all the standards. The drainage, the detention, the impervious cover, the streets, the fire protection, and all the rest of the stuff that goes along with it. I mean, but we're not going to go that distance because you've had this moratorium unless we can get the conditional use permit. All right? And we can't do it unless y'all approve the whole at the end of the day.
Any questions for Mr. Uhr?
Mark, I've developed 18 properties, 7 million plus in the last 7 years, and I've never gotten the zoning change before I get an engineer drawing flood water. So I don't know where you're saying don't invest the money into your proposal before you
You want to allow, I'm sorry, If you want to allow questions from the audience, you need to make that clear or ask them to come up to the podium.
Well, I don't really think that that's something that I need to discuss with you.
Yes,
I'm discussing it with this body of representatives. So I do know how to develop stuff, just like you. So we'll just, I'm not gonna go and do a shortcut, I'm gonna go through all the city regulations, and that's my plan, so.
Okay. Thank you.
And I know you guys held this, you had some people that are opposed to it. Were these questions answered pretty well to those citizens, or what was the feel of that? Unfortunately, we were not able to go to that meeting, and
The same questions were asked during the P and Z meeting. And as we said in the P and Z meeting, this is the first step for the developer to come in and request a conditional use permit. If he gets a conditional use permit granted, the next step is he and his client will have to come in and meet with staff and bring us their engineered design plan for the park itself. That will lay it out, put it up against all of our code ordinances, all the things we've been talking about. It has to have an engineered design drainage plan. It has to meet all the street width requirements. It has to meet all the setback requirements, the separation between the units and those types of things before it can be approved. And once they bring that plan to us, staff will review it. Our engineers will review their engineered design drainage plan. And if all those things are correct, then we will bring to you approval of the plan itself and let you know that it did pass all the tests that are required by the city up against the ordinances to ensure that they have met all of our requirements and followed all our rules. And if they do that, then we'll bring it back to you for your vote, whether or not to approve the process for them to move forward to the park.
Mike, bring up on the history, we were in the moratorium, and then after the moratorium, we didn't have the RV ordinance, so cuts were used prior to getting RV parks passed, and that's what we have to revert to now since we do not have the RV ordinance. Our cut is our means.
That is the process for developing an RV park within the city limits of Rockport. We had a moratorium in place for over 2 years. We had a handful of folks come in, inquiring about when the moratorium would be lifted. And the moratorium expired. We chose, y'all helped us choose to decide to let the moratorium expire. We are in the process of reviewing for the third time a proposed RV park ordinance that we will include a zoning district for RV parks. The process today is just what we're going through today. You must come in, ask for a conditional use permit. If the conditional use permit is granted, that conditional use permit will stay with that property as long as it is continued to be used as an RV park. If this developer builder comes in, develops his park, and then 6 months from now, he decides to sell it to someone else that's going to continue the use, then the conditional use for that property would stay with it. If this owner or another owner in the future sells the property and somebody decides they're not going to use it for an RV park, and it's not used for an RV park for a year, then it reverts back to its current zoning, and that property is no longer under a conditional use permit. It will be under a conditional use permit for use as an RV park only.
Does there have to be a percentage of the RV park being used as an RV park? Now, if he just has one tenant on there, would that still count as?
The couple wouldn't be complete. If they ask for 28.
It has to be all, okay. Gotcha.
It's not complete.
Yes. It's hard to see with this TV anyway.
Hello, my name is Jerry Beckwith, and I'm the owner of 1411 West 12th Street. And anybody that knows me or my wife, we're rule followers. This is all about doing it right. We're not gonna put the cart in front of the horse. We know we have to get this cut before we can get, I don't have a lot of money, so we have to get this so that we can hire the people to come in and do the assessment. And this could solve a lot of the problems that the complaints of my neighbor, the ones that are standing against us, are complaining about with the drainage. So I'm completely willing to go that route. Anybody that knows, Dawn and I know we own Juicy's Airstream Retreat in Bolton, and it's a beautiful little retreat. It's glamping. We'll do the same thing with this. We'll make it, real high. And I agree with Andrew Kane about the fencing that needs to go around the property and all that kind of stuff. So we will follow whatever rules are told to do this. We're not going to jump out of the bounds. We think this will be a real nice little asset to this little area. Any questions?
Any questions from Mr. Beckett?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. This is an action item, Councilor Sullivan.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 10 as presented.
Second.
A motion, Mayor Pro Tem Villa, a second, Mr. Brundrett. Any further discussion? Ward 1.
No.
Ward 2.
Yay.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. Thank you, motion carries. Item number 11, deliberate and act on first reading of the ordinance amending the official zoning map as stipulated under Article 4.1 of the City of Rockport zoning ordinance number 1027 by changing the zoning of land R6, R2, hotel motel district, and second family dwelling for property located at 1315 South Church Street, also known as Outlot 14, Doherty and Mathis Outlots, Doherty and Mathis Division, being 2.526 acres, City of Rockport, Aransas County, Texas, to R6 Hotel Motel District, to allow individual beach-style houses, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Just make sure I don't have any cards. Okay. Okay. Deitrich, you're back up.
Well, I know Mr. Berlet intended to be here, so I'm surprised he's not.
It's right there.
So this property was, I don't know if you guys remember the old oleander courts that was so badly damaged in the storm, and Mr. Berlet, I believe, bought the property originally to try to fix them, but they weren't fixable. So he did demolish them all, and now the front part of the property is R6, and the back part is R2, correct? And that's what he wants it all R6 so that he can build some beach-style housing. And I'll let him explain his project to you. Thank you.
Let council know that.
Good evening, council. I'm John Berlet, 1307 South Lago, and I'm happy to take any questions. I think we went through the process. Is there any opposition?
Any questions?
Questions from the council?
I was going to say, if you have questions, you
When I vote.
Hey, John, I just wonder if you'd like a really quick run through your idea on, because you have the conceptual proposed plan in here, if you kind of like a quick run through that, so people can see what you're thinking before we move forward.
Okay, great. Just by way of background, the adjoining property on our south end is completely commercial. We have the front 1/3 R6 hotel and the back 2/3 approximately residential R2. And then everything on the frontage there on Church Street is hotel for a couple blocks. Anyway, what we intend to build is a minimum of 25, hopefully 28 beach-style homes up on 2 and 3 stories up to the 45-foot height limit to take advantage of the bay views. The front allows for currently 45 feet, And it's just opposite what we need because we want the shorter buildings in the front on Church and the taller ones in the rear. So we're requesting the entire tract be the same one zoning R6. We go all the way 2 blocks to Ann Street on the rear, and there's a significant sized ditch in the back of the property on Ann. And what Ann Street unpaved is what separates us from the RV park Ancient Oaks, just to the west of us. So we have that in our rear, we have commercial on our left, we have hotel on the front third of the property, R6. And I think, did I explain? We're going to use short-term rental. We're going to have perhaps golf cart rentals, lounge area for our guests, up in near the mixed-use building in the front of the property. It's going to be a tropical look to it. Coastal tropical.
Will these be private ownership, or will they be owned as like a condo regime and as short-term rentals?
No condo regime. We won't be selling the property for at least 10 years because it's in a designated qualified opportunity zone location. And to maximize that investment, we're going to hold at least 10 years.
Okay.
So these short-term rentals add to the tourism business that's already here and improve upon them. Hopefully add some additional attractions.
Any other questions? Some other action items, so again, a motion.
Make motion to approve item number 11 as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
I abstain for conflict of interest.
Mayor, aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 12, deliberate and act on second and final reading of ordinance of the City of Rockport, Texas, adopting an amended comprehensive plan for the city, providing the adopted comprehensive plan shall supersede and replace the city comprehensive plan previously adopted, providing a repealer clause, providing a severability clause, providing an effective date. I've got folks that would either like comments read or speak on this. We'll do these in the order they were received. The first individual is Irene Dubicka, 1108 South Austin, Rockport, Texas. She's a non-speaker, and she wants this statement read. This comprehensive plan promotes unhealthy Californication of Rockport and its EPJ. The current draft still has a few fatal flaws that need to be removed as follows in order to truly sustain a healthy and vibrant future for Rockport. Please disallow tax inequality. Don't enable the granting of special treatment via property tax incentives or abatements to developers, many of whom are from large metropolitan areas. Instead of bringing in property taxes immediately, help pay off Rockport's debts. Such a practice will defer developers' taxes for several years, perhaps even forever, if the development falters and or does not spike in value to make up for the lost years. This notion artificially exempts developers from paying property taxes, yet actually increases the property tax burden on current Rockport homeowners and taxpayers, the actual stakeholders of the comprehensive plan. There is no evidence for a reasonable return on investment in such schemes. Such a practice also fosters favoritism, cronyism, and backroom deals. Item 2, another notion imported from California would be to permit high-density zoning or density bonuses in current residential neighborhoods in Rockport, particularly near the increasing flooded coast. That notion creates internal contradictions in the plan, which is meant to preserve coastal charm, prevent overcrowding, and reduce population density, particularly for floodplain management, improve drainage amid rising sea levels. Item 3, the first action item on page 153 must be downplayed and soft-pedaled as aspirational only, so that half-baked notions in this draft plan are not mistakenly considered to be guidance for future zoning deliberations. 4, many objections and letters of opposition were submitted to the city over the past 2 years after the first draft was concocted and the points raised, some page by page, and those comments to be heard should be honored. Next is Kristie Rutledge.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, Kristie Rutledge, 1411 Dana Drive. I concur with, you want to start the timer, Ms. Irene Dubicka's comments. Many citizens have come out and objected to this comprehensive plan. I have in my hand a petition that was signed on July 19th in this room by 30 people who spoke or attended here in opposition to the item on the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. On February 7th, the Planning and Zoning Commission was supposed to reconsider what they recommended from July 19th to see if that was actually implemented in the plan. Those July 19th Planning and Zoning Commission minutes are not out on the city's website. We're talking how many months now? 7 months, almost 8 months. We have no minutes out on the city's website. So how does Planning and Zoning and how does the public, how does the city council know what was actually put in the record? Is this what we're doing? Same thing we did with the petition on City Hall. We're just tossing out public opposition and acting like it didn't happen. What we've heard, so I think that this agenda item is actually invalid because there's no minutes out there. There's no public record of what Planning and Zoning Commission was supposed to vote on February 7th. In addition to that, we have the map. The map has been substantially changed. What else has been substantially changed? Who authorized changing of the map from mixed use to commercial for red? In mixed use, red for commercial is actually worse for properties that are adjacent, single family properties adjacent to that commercial zoning. So who authorized that? These are substantial changes. This plan needs to go back on first reading, come back and have all of these changes be held in a public meeting where the citizens can speak about it. So you're not in a rush to pass this plan. It's up to you to get it right. I have submitted to you many amendments that are needed, including to get rid of inclusionary zoning, the requirement to zone in the ordinances, remove the coloring of downtown Fulton. This plan is not ready. We've messed up the maps. In December, we had Kevin Caruth changing the maps 3 or 4 times, and sometimes in the matter of a day. That map on the wall here was out of the blue, presented at the last minute in December. You know this is wrong. Do the right thing. Make your motions wisely. This plan is not ready. There's been substantial changes, and that should not be considered on second and final vote. And you also know that there has been overwhelming opposition from the public to many, many items within this comprehensive plan. Unfortunately, it's not recorded on the public record. Wasn't available for planning and zoning to see that. Wasn't available for the public or city council who could not attend that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burton. I have a form from Billy Dell, 202 Drum Drive, Rockport, Texas, non-speaker, and wants to speak on item 12. Once it's read into the record. Any zoning change from residential to anything else should have notices sent out to citizens living in the immediate area for their approval or disapproval. Zoning changes will affect their property values and best use of land in the immediate areas. Residential areas should remain homogeneous to zoning at the time homeowners purchased. That's her statement. Just a point of information, that is required, and we do that. We do send notices out to people within 200.
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. Just note there were no zoning changes done with the comprehensive plan. It is just a plan.
Right.
The future land use map is just a future land use map. Does not constitute zoning. Nothing in the comprehensive plan constitutes zoning.
I have a form from Kathy Kane, 109 Boardwalk Avenue, non-speaker, wants this read into the record. I feel like I am singing the same song from the 727 council meeting. Most of my posts for that meeting apply to the comprehensive plan we're reviewing today. Turn attention to vote. I have to ask, what is the rush? The the 7/27 meeting, council asked staff to make major changes and take the plans back to P&Z for their review. It's disappointing to see the plan as an agenda item without a workshop. I have to question whether a second reading is applicable given the major changes made by staff and approved at P&Z. Several alarming concepts are still in this plan. Why would you provide infrastructure and financial assistance to private developers? Why are you targeting a tax reinvestment zone for the downtown district? Aren't the other retail areas important? What is the purpose behind 2,200 square foot lots? That's a reduction of more than half of what is allowed today. Here's my verse from the 7/27 meeting. Clearly, an outcome of this plan is to make changes. These changes need to be carefully examined before the plan is approved. This council, after workshop, each chapter and development action items that are smart, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. These action items need to be prioritized. Items related to infrastructure and flooding must take priority over offering tax abatements, and waived impact fees to developers is an incentive for high-density developments. Identifying and protecting our natural habitats for conservation requirements is essential, while implementing trolley services is nonsensical. Budgeting funds for road maintenance and improvements takes priority over spending funds on marketing and tourist websites. Here's my second verse for today's meeting. Making changes for changes is not so smart. Having a plan that is referenceable and actionable is smart. Take the time to do this right and be smart. Andrew Kane.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Andrew Kane, 2106 Lakeview Drive. How is this plan even here for second reading after substantial changes have been made to it? It needs to go back through the process. Who gave someone a magic crayon and recolored existing residential to commercial? Whoever got that magic crayon colored out of bounds as well and proposed future use of residential, all residential Fulton. These recommendations carry weight in the future. Must stop with my script. So yes, it doesn't create zoning changes, but a comprehensive plan is the city's proposed recommended future use carries a lot of weight, and so wants to rezone that residential to commercial, saying it's in the future use map, it's in the recommended policy that the city wants to go. So yes, the comprehensive plan does give a gold ticket for rezoning from residential. It carries weight. It's called development by right after the fact. Existing property owners bought in knowing the surrounding zoning of their property and invested in improvements with that knowledge. The map needs to go back to today's existing zoning after the mixed use was removed. Kevin Kruth actually stated that the last time it was before the council and the instructions were not followed. Quote, the proposed mixed use areas will remain their current designations. That's not what happened. The residential went to commercial. Eliminate density by right. It mandates required zoning changes. It mandates it. It mandates required zoning changes. It's called density by right. Eliminate reducing the minimum housing unit below 500 square feet. Eliminate reducing minimum lot sizes from the 5,000 and 7,000 we currently have to 2,200 square feet. Dense development and flooding issues don't mix well here in our low-lying coastal area. Eliminate tax incentives or abatements. We're having that debate now. It hasn't been approved, so it doesn't belong in the comprehensive plan where the debate is done. Eliminate mandating developers to develop with inclusionary zoning policies. Mandating they include certain types of affordable housing in their developments. It's hard enough to pull off a profitable development without government interfering in a free market. There's been enormous debate over this plan for years. Let us vote. Why not bring it to the citizens? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Mayor, I have one of my constituents' computer went down. She texted me her statement. She texted it to me at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is on behalf of Candace Sargent at 214 Portia Avenue. Agenda item 12. We are opposed to this latest change of plans. An acceptance plan was in place, and now a drastic change of those plans has been created. An unacceptable drastic addition of commercial use. Something as critical as this mess should have been front page news in color, so the citizens you claim you represent could have a notice as to why you are trying to make Rockport into Port A. Stop pleasing developers who don't care about Rockport, who only care about money. Why are you doing this going around your citizens? It's not just sneaky, it's absolutely pleasing. If you care at all about the citizens of Rockport, publish this change of plans unless you realize the backlash this would cause, unless you don't want residents of Rockport's participation. This whole bait and switch just seems just like a good old boy back on the field.
Carey.
Skate Carrier 122 Cedar Ridge Drive, Rockport. I come to you about the comprehensive plan. We hope that you would have a motion against and a counter proposal to come back to open this up and give people more time to look at the proposal. I see one side says it's not rezoning, the other side says it is rezoning. That's the part that scares me, is the rezoning. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jeff Hutt.
Jeff Hutt, 2201 Prairie Road. Is the comprehensive plan an ordinance? Is that correct?
It's adopted by ordinance. Yeah, it is adopted by ordinance, yes.
Is this comprehensive plan subject to the petition process? Because I know the city of Plano did it, and it was upheld by the Dallas Appellate's Court that yes, the comprehensive plan could be petitioned.
That's correct.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, he's saying if it's adopted and they have a petition to appeal.
Yes, sir. And that guidelines would be outlined by state statutes and by the city charter, is that correct?
That's correct.
Sir, could I, Mr. Martin, could we please, as citizens, have a rundown on how to go about that petition, just the following, if the ordinance is passed? And for the record, I'm against this.
Thank you, Mr. Nancy Bolte.
Good evening, Council. My name is Nancy Bolting, and I live at 201 Spanish Woods Drive. I have a different take. The comp plan has become a focal point primarily due to the suggested map layouts and descriptions within the documentation. A few residents have made their voices heard through an emotional plea, but few have stated that the plan is only the vehicle to provide, not the actual act of implementing the trip. What I am wanting this council and general public to understand is that the action items that drive the city of Rockport, council, mayor, staff, and various departments have already begun. In the final chapter labeled implementation, various plans have been consolidated for better reference and the entity that has been responsible for that. The actual plan is up to this point a roadmap, and the direction our future council members and mayor take will still be their decision as well as their constituents. What will not change is all the underlying plans that were used to develop this roadmap. Thanks to the implementation of these goals in the long-term recovery plan, the multi-jurisdictional plan, the multi-jurisdictional floodplain management plan, the downtown master plan, the heritage district zoning overlay plan, all are in full motion. Adoption of this comp plan states we have a plan for the future for disastrous events and that may occur if we choose to follow it. In September of 2021, we had a governmental briefing from all the entities that were participating in this. There are multiple items that are already in this comp plan that have already started. One of them, actually, we had groundbreaking for a parking lot downtown. That's part of the plan. So please, The book itself is the reference. It is there for you to look at, to see what the people that participated in this wanted. It is not up to you to decide that's how you're going to do it. We are going to have a new mayor, we're going to have a new city council member, and they will get that decision. But all of these other plans that are part of this was consolidated into this plan so that it was a reference. It's an easy book to look at and to see. It's pretty pictures put into a plan. Zoning and planning. We've listened to cuts, we've listened to changes, we've listened to everything. There's a process. So to allow citizens to go off with their emotions instead of the actual facts that are in this plan, please look through it again and read through all the other plans that are already being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. So this is where we are now. A little recap. We passed the first reading. Council had requested that we go back for approval on the changes, everything, all I's dotted and T's crossed. P&Z reviewed the plan and came back to a unanimous vote to approve. That was back for about a month ago, maybe?
February 7th.
February 7th, okay. First of this month. And to my knowledge, all the changes that we requested after looking at the plan, the updating time looked like they have it. And just again to reiterate, this plan does not constitute zoning. There's no zoning change. We all know that. Okay. Any questions? Comments?
I didn't know the question was asked, and you answered it, was the city limits, things were yellow outside the city limits, and Mike had told, he had answered the question by saying it was the ETJ, that's the reason why it was that way.
I have a couple of things, Mr. Mayor. First off, the changes made that were requested to be made by P&Z were to remove mixed use from both the map and the verbiage. Well, the removal of mixed use from the map changed open green spaces to commercial spaces, changed the Heritage District overlay to a complete commercial, and among other things. So I have issue with that. I do have issue with the Heritage District because by ordinance, it does have mixed use in it. It's always been a mixed use area. So now it's been removed out of the comprehensive plan and carpeted with commercial. So are we changing an ordinance? Are we looking at future changes?
I believe this just
changes the ordinance
plan.
Okay, well,
It's adopted by ordinance, but it does not change.
Okay, well, according to this, which is using the Heritage District overlay from 2006, we are now changing the zoning. Because it's changed in the verbiage. Yes, it is.
It doesn't change zoning. You can't change zoning unless it goes through the process. It's got to go to.
I know that. The arterial mixed use and the other mixed use, which is seeing right now, have been taken out of here and just left as arterial and the one that I can't remember the name of right now. So.
You guys have an answer
coming
for her?
from the 2006 overlay. No, it's not.
Seem kind of disagreement what they're saying, so we can have maybe clarification of what that answer is.
Mike, do you understand the question?
No, I don't. I don't
Okay,
understand.
let me pull this back up because I misplaced it. When it was told that mixed use had to be completely taken out.
Out of the comprehensive plan.
Out of the comprehensive plan, yes, okay? There is a very large discussion in this entire comprehensive plan about downtown. there is a specific where it references the Heritage District overlay. And in that Heritage District overlay, mixed use was then taken out of the discussion specifically about how we use the overlay in the Heritage Zone, in the Heritage District. So now in here, we have a direct quote from the 2006 Heritage District overlay that takes out mixed use, even though that's not what's in the 2006 overlay. Does that make any more sense? No.
If there's a question there, I don't understand what the question is.
Well, the question, it's not a question, it's a statement. And the statement is,
that we took the verbiage of mixed use out of that page because I didn't want to see it in it. But that does not change the Heritage District rules and ordinance. Because the comp plan.
then it can't directly reference the Heritage District overlay if you change words in the comprehensive plan, because it's a direct reference. It's not a, here's what we're going to do in the future. It's a direct reference to an existing ordinance.
The ordinance stands.
Well, yeah, I know the ordinance stands. I understand that.
Okay.
But in here, you know, I mean, I know it's all future and we don't have to do, we just have to pass this till, according to local government code section 211004, we can do zoning changes. That's the only reason we have to have this. By the way, is one sentence in the local government code.
Okay, so this is my thought process on it. And I'm just gonna go back to the rushing. This wasn't rushed. I don't want to discredit the people that took their time the last 2 years or a couple years to actually work with this plan. And I understand it was a small group, but they still took that time out of their lives to work on this plan. And we have to give that credit, that they came to workshops that were held, that were done. And we have to give them that credit. What I'm seeing here is there's still a lot of questions. There's still a lot of just not understanding how this works or how it's going to be done. What would it hurt, I guess, is my question, to postpone this for another 30 days and maybe do a workshop? And if people want to come and do it, I understand it's taken forever. I understand. And it's a frustrating, and there's a lot of work that people have in their chart, but that's my question. What would hurt that to do that? If that's what they're asking, we have all these people coming in, they're asking for a workshop, they want to have their discussion. What does that hurt in the long run? That's just my question.
I can address. This has been brought to you today because council passed action and planning and zoning passed action. At the meeting in July, you basically sent it back to P&Z, make the corrections, okay? Those corrections were made. The process has taken this long to work through the system to bring back to you for possible action. The reason it's a second reading was because you passed it on first reading, okay? That has not been rushed through, you're right. So the answer to your question is, if you guys don't, if you want to table it, you can table it. That's totally within your realm. Your staff direction. Either vote on it, table it, vote yes, vote no. Like I said, table it, do whatever you want. So the answer to your question is you can take whatever action this council deems necessary.
I appreciate that. Again, there's so much back and forth still and so many questions and so many, I think that worries me to pass something through when there's so many questions still being asked. And I don't think the plan is a bad plan. I think there's things that could be done better, but not bad plans. That just concerns me that there's still so many questions not being asked. And I understand we passed it through the first ordinance. Does it make it right to not, maybe do it that way so we can get these answered?
I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think you council asked your planning and zoning commission to take a look They gave an honest look and they recommended changes to you, and the process from there brings it back to you for possible action. Again, now it's in your court. If you, if staff direction to delay it and do another workshop, we can certainly do that.
When's the last time you guys had a workshop for this?
The last joint public hearing was held on July the 13th, on July the 27th, at the first reading of the proposed ordinance. It was approved 4-1 vote to move to the second final reading with the changes suggested by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The final draft containing the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended changes were presented to y'all on November the 9th. After consultation with the city attorney in executive session, we postponed action on the second and final reading until November 23rd to allow staff time to provide council with a clean copy that removed all mention of co-living and mixed-use language from the plan and readjust the future land use map. On November 23rd, y'all voted to send the revised plan back to the Planning and Zoning Commission to have them review the clean version to ensure that all mention of co-living and mixed use had been removed from the plan and to ensure that the future land use map was adjusted to reflect the changes. On February 7th, the Planning and Zoning Commission met. They reviewed the changes made to the plan to ensure all references to mixed use and co-living had been removed and the changes that were made to the future land use map. After deliberation, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend it to City Council for adoption of the proposed comprehensive plan on the second and final reading of the ordinance. We've done this multiple times. We've been doing this since summer of 2018. If there are questions, if you vote tonight to pass the comprehensive plan on second reading of an ordinance, and tomorrow one of you or a citizen comes in with questions about the plan or recommended changes to the plan, then we could enact those changes at any time. If someone comes in and says, I don't like this, or I found this that says this, and we recommend that we change it, okay, staff could get together, we would bring an action item to the council to revise the ordinance or repeal the ordinance and replace it with the ordinance that takes out or adds to or changes whatever it is the council member or a citizen might recommend for the plan. This is a living document. And we've done this back and forth for almost 2 years now. And each time we come in, we keep saying, we've got more questions, we need more time. The plan is the plan. If you pass the plan tonight, the plan is open for adjustments or changes throughout the entirety of its life. We're calling the City of Rockport Master Plan 2022 to 2042. So it's a 20-year plan. It should be reviewed, revised, and adhered to throughout its life. And, you know, we should already be looking at the future and preparing for the future. That's what this plan does. It gives us a roadmap for that future. You know, we've got a lot of people that don't like a lot of the things that are going on with development in our community and such. And that is all open for discussion as part of this plan. If there's something in there that mentions a development process that somebody disagrees with, and they've got a recommendation for something that could be added to the plan to make it better, the plan is open for that. So if you adopt it tonight, it's always open for revision.
I completely understand that, but my concern is passing the document when you're not completely fully comfortable with it. And why would we pass something then we're going to want to change it a week later? That's my concern. And again, I understand this has been a 2-year process, but my question was, when was the last workshop? You gave me the city council meetings when we had a discussion, but when was the actual last workshop? Was the current council that we have here, the new and people that are having, were they available at that time? Is why I'm asking that.
I don't have the dates of a workshop. Like I said, the latest joint public hearing was back on July the 13th, 2021. So that would have been at this city council.
And I'm, just concerned that pass this and a week later we change it. We could have maybe saved that time and just had a workshop, had the discussion, we did what was asked, and then we can move forward and get this done properly. That's where I'm coming from. So, and again, I appreciate the years, I know it's been years, and it needs to be done. You need to have one, you plan for the future, but it doesn't mean that we can't just do it the right way, so then we don't have to deal with having to change it right away or having to fix it if there's issues coming up here as soon as you pass it through.
Can I approach the council a little bit? You may too. May I approach?
Yes, please.
I realize this is out of order and I appreciate listening. So we started this plan 2018. It's a 20-year plan. We've now advanced it 2 more years. You're asking for another 30-day workshop. We've postponed. It's been explained numerous times that it is not written in stone. You will not be on the council member possibly in 4 years. You may not. We're going to get a new mayor. We're going to get a new council member. And Ms. Jackson may serve another term. So it's always going to be in flux. Your decision, our constituents' decisions are not always going to be the same, and we're not always going to see the same goal. We had a storm. We had a plan in place. Because we had a plan in place, we were able to go to our governmental entities and say, look, we know where we wanted our town to go. Can you help us? We had smart enough people that were at the table. December 2017 came together, developed a lot of plans that actually are implemented in this plan. Not everybody's going to like it. There's a lot of things I don't like, but it's a plan. It's a plan to guide us. It's a plan that if we have another disaster, we can go and say, look, we have this plan. We want to implement some of these things, but we can't because it was never passed, because it's been going to workshop to workshop to workshop. You have just discounted all the people that have participated in the development of this, all the comprehensive plans behind it, and all the plans that have gone into this by a 30-day delay. Because we have emotional constituents who have picked it apart because of one little map play, one little coloring, children that have participated. Now I'm angry because this has gone on long enough. We're going to have a new mayor. We have 2 people in the audience that have put in their hat. We're going to have a new council member. You're always going to have to make tough decisions. But to keep postponing things until you think you can get it perfectly right will never happen. It's never going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to address the council.
Yeah.
I'd like to approach.
Hey, hold up. I'm gonna say some stuff first before y'all come up. So I understand what you're saying. I understand what she's saying also. The problem that I see is we have done everything that we've been asked to do. The planning and zoning, when I was at that meeting, it was asked, everything that they were asked to do, that they were, the people, the citizens were voicing their opinions about, was done. Everything that they requested, they took out, came back to us. Again, went back to them, they agreed, came back to us, now we're here again. It's never gonna stop. And what she's saying is, if it did get approved, you get a new mayor, a new council member, they might come in and might want something else changed that we just took 3 years to take. It's never gonna be perfect.
No, and
people have different opinions. Mm-hmm. We all have different opinions. Obviously, my opinion is way different than theirs opinion. So it is what it is. We got to stop kicking this can down the road and finally, we got to make a decision and do it. I mean, that's one of the main reasons why I didn't want public comment when it came to City Hall. This is the specific reason right here. We're never going to have a perfect City Hall because somebody might not like the color of the curtains. Somebody might think something else was different. We're never going to stop. It's not going to stop. This is why we were chose to make this decision. We were elected to do this. So, I mean, it's either we do it, we don't. They don't like it, guess what? They can put their hats in their name in the hat, put themselves on the ballot. Plain and simple.
Okay, who was first?
I just want to say.
Is anything new or is it?
It's new.
covered?
Kristie Rutledge, 1411 Damon Drive. The disadvantage of having 3 minutes on the gong is that you don't get to say everything you have to say. So I didn't get to go over some of the questions that I had for you all. I studied your reports. I studied all of this stuff, and I've been studying it for quite a while, since this summer. I appreciate all the input that has happened into this plan. It's just not a plan that fits us, and it keeps changing at the last minute.
You covered this.
No, on Friday afternoon, you gave her time on Friday afternoon.
You're out of order. Thank you.
And we don't know what they are.
Thank you, Ms. Rutledge. Mr.
Maps
Hutt.
have been deleted.
You got something new to say?
Yes, sir. Because we mentioned it was just a roadmap, and when she first got up and speak, she talked about it's the long-term recovery plan. Now, when the long-term recovery plan was passed, I went around and I talked to everybody about it, and I was like, this guy has serious implications. And everybody told me, Jeff, don't worry, we just did it. There's stuff in there that we don't like, but we had to do it because we had to get that federal dollars. However, every time the EDC or the LGC or somebody came up and wanted to do something, where did they start? We have the long-term recovery plan, and it was passed. A roadmap, both of them called it a roadmap. A roadmap is a direction that you're going. You're putting into place actions and things that are going to happen. If you're going to stop it, now's the time to stop it. If not, yeah, I agree. You should just vote for it. I mean, it's a bad plan, but you seem to like bad plans.
Nothing was changed from the packet though with the map. What we sent to the P&Z is what we got back. So I'm confused with that.
Yeah.
There was nothing changed.
I could.
Just making sure that was.
Several maps, all the scenario maps in the same map. I got all.
But the map that was in the PMZ is the same map that we have in our agenda packet now.
A lot of things are deleted from the plan. We don't know what they are.
Okay, this is an action item. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve comprehensive plan as presented.
Okay, motion from Mr. Lee. I will second that motion. Ward 1.
Can I pass so I can quit being the first vote all the time?
We're going to call them in order.
I have a parliamentary question, if I may. I'm going to ask it now.
Sure.
If this motion fails, can we revisit this on the same agenda item? With an amended motion or a different motion?
So what, I'm sorry. What was, I don't understand the question.
If motion 12 fails to pass, can we revisit this motion with a different motion on the same agenda item?
Right now, the motion is to approve.
You understand?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what you have in mind. So as far as your parliamentary procedure, if the motion to approve fails, then the item is no. If someone makes a motion to table, even after a motion is seconded, that's an intervening motion. And that motion has to be dealt with before the main motion is dealt with, if that's what your question is.
I would like to make a motion to postpone action on this until March 22nd.
We already have a second.
Till March 22nd, so that some of the council members' questions can be answered in a staff workshop with one-on-one back and forth with staff. That would be my motion, postpone to March 22nd with the staff workshop with council.
I'll second the motion to postpone until March 22nd.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mayor, on which motion?
Aye.
Ward 2.
No.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, nay. Motion to postpone carries. Item 13. Hear deliberate on presentation from Republic Services on current contract with the City of Rockport and possible conditions of brush bulk trash pickup. Please, Mr. Reed.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff, fellow constituents. Mike Reeves, Manager of Municipal Services for Republic Services for South Texas area. I'm here tonight to, first of all, was requested to come present some additional services in our menu to you that some of your constituents have asked of you. And so I wanted to go through that. But I also wanted to take a moment to update all of you on what's going on around Rockport other than just locally in the world of solid waste recycling environmental services. So if I may, and I'm going to lean on Ms. Kimberly to help me out here. Next slide, please. So what's top of mind for this year coming out of 2021? We don't want to keep bringing up COVID. I think it's important to reflect on the past and now, what's coming ahead of us. So many of you may have not realized this, but ask yourself this question. When wave 1 and wave 2 hit, especially wave 1, a lot of folks started working from home. Agreed? So the residential garbage and recycling volume quadrupled across the board. Okay. Wave 2, some returned back to offices, but some made it permanent. Some said this is the new norm. And a lot of companies allowed that flexibility to work remotely. So as of current, those residential volumes have dropped down significantly, but they're still higher than they were before wave 1, okay? We've had to adjust for that across the board in all of our municipalities where we service them, and we have. Second thing I wanted to bring up is looking at recycling the way it is today. We all heard about the China sword issue back in 2017, for those not familiar with it. They were the largest accepting country of recycling commodities across the board. They'd send barges with exports over to the U.S. Many companies, including ours, would offload the barges and send the product back to them for recycling purposes. They got very stringent, said we only want 2% or less of contaminated product, we're done. And they said, that's it. We had to get creative. We had to find local mills, manufacturers, and other accepting companies to take that domestically. As of the end of last year, end of this year, where we are now, commodities for plastics and certain other recycling commodities have returned because those mills and manufacturers don't even want that. It was so abundant at one point, now they're like, hey, we could use some of that again. So that has helped curb some of the cost. Our cost in our cities residentially is to come collect it at the curb, take it back to Corpus Christi in our case, because we have a recycling center there, and sort it, process it, put it back in the proper family, cube it for bale, and then ship it back to other companies, which they will come collect it, and then the process begins again. So that has helped keep costs down in that note, which is good. So things are looking up on the recycling note for sustainability. One of the things that you may or may not be aware of, though, is the driver challenges that are presented. Okay? I'll get into that in a minute. And then the last piece is we've got some offerings to mention, and we'll talk about the next steps. Okay, so we just went through the resi volume on garbage for the most part. Commercials kind of remained flat. Not too many changes there, and industrial is your roll-off business. Well, that will go up and down depending on industry. Okay, next slide. This is about an hour and a half presentation. I'm going to shorten it. Just thank you. Pandemic impacts to supply chain. Many of you may or may not know, but steel continues to soar, the price of it, okay? We're all familiar with the backlog on shipping delays and products across the board. It affects all of us at home and in our business. But one thing you may not think about is the dumpsters at the businesses. They're more costly for us now, and there's a lag time on getting them. Brand new trucks that we put on your streets. We ordered some about 18 months ago. We finally got them. That's the trend. So we're having to order more and plan accordingly based on those orders. Next slide. How about CDL drivers with Class B? Look at this, it's interesting. Fewer drivers, younger workers are not entering the driving industry at a rate high enough to replace an aging driver workforce. So you see those gaps? The CDL job volume is up by 17%, but those seeking the jobs are down by 55%. So it's getting harder and harder, more challenging to find drivers to do that type of job again. There's fortunate having resources with company our size. We're able to pull from a neighboring division if we need to, San Antonio, Valley, Houston. And so that has helped Rockport, it's helped our team and helped the other cities that we serve. Next slide. We talked about the recycling commodities. For those interested, you can see the percentage of Republic Services materials sold by category of commodity and the trend for 3 years there. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is really interesting one. Everyone knows where inflation is right now. It's crazy. We don't see a reduction anytime soon, okay? In our contract and in all contracts for garbage and recycling providers, there is a yearly escalator. It's the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, okay? A few years back, we visited where we are with ours here for Rockport, and you guys had the CPI plus fuel. It's a good thing that you guys asked me, Mike, can we take that fuel component out of it? So when we renegotiated and we went automated, it's just been the CPI. But if you look at these trends, where are they going just in these last few months? This is July behind us. They're upwards 4 or 5%. As of 2 days ago, the current CPI for the last 45-day model ran at close to 9%. Okay? So that fluctuates every October 1st when we present that letter. Keep that in mind, I'll come back to it. Next slide. Okay, so brush and bulk, we define it as yard waste, okay? 2 components to that. I have 24 city contracts that I oversee. Out of those 24, 11 of those cities have yard waste at the curb. Rockport, your predecessors have asked me about this before. Here we are again years later, fast forward. You do not have this service with us today. You do have some benefits though that other cities don't have. You have a county site that your residents can take debris like this to for a nominal fee. That is an advantage. It's nearby, it's convenient. If they have the means to do it, a trailer, a truck, or they want to rent something, or they borrow some help to do so, they have that ability. Other cities don't have that. So on the cities that we do service, you have your bulk items, which is basically anything you can take into your home and remove from your home that's not a structure, that's not hazardous, okay? Furniture, appliances, things like that, gym equipment, barbecue pit, mine is the propane, that's your bulk. Your yard waste brush is going to be your trimmings, that's obvious, okay? So if you ask me, Mike, what would that look like and cost us today to add that in the future for your residents? I always believe in a number not to exceed. These are not hard numbers. I want to take out of this meeting your interest level if we move forward with this. If y'all decide as a council and as a staff, this is something you want to present at a later meeting, there's no action tonight, this is just a discussion. We will go run a pro forma model and find out the best value we could get you for either of these options, okay? Some of our cities have monthly set out, quarterly, and biannual. Moving forward, any future contract that we're gonna, in this area, offer brush in bulk, we're only gonna offer the quarterly or the biannual. Because we found over years, and we've moved some of our existing cities from the monthly to another format. Because from a curb appeal standpoint, and a code enforcement standpoint, people will set it out when they want to set it out. Even though you might have education materials out there, flyers, social media, city website, calendars, everything that's there for them, you can't always control human nature. So the less time you give them to put it out, then your curb appeal is not impacted as much. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now, whether it's any of those three frequencies, I've learned, and I'm still learning, they'll put it out when they want to do it. And it's going to be different sizes, different volumes of debris, okay? All right, so looking at the amount of debris that we would allow with limitations, you have to put some type of limitation on it, max. Otherwise, you have contractors being hired, and they're putting out endless amounts of debris that's going to irritate the neighbors because they don't put out hardly anything in some cases. It just causes all kinds of problems, and we have to collect that and do it within a certain time frame. So the plan for that and give you a price, the number of people that participate, this will be a shared cost. Some aren't going to use it, others are going to overuse it. Does that make sense? So it's the same as the garbage and the recycling service. So those options are, many cities have 6 cubic yards. That's going to be about the size of a Volkswagen Jetta, not the new ones, the older boxier ones with the 4 doors, just to give you a visual, okay? 12 cubic yards, double that. If you want to look at it a different way, that's about 3.5 small truckloads of brush or bulk, okay? If you want something that's in here as a visual, look at that corkboard on the wall behind you right there. That's about 12 cubic yards. Not that tall, but the length of it. So you drop down between the white sconces right there, or whatever that is on the wall, and the top of that piece, that would be your 12 cubic yards. Okay? Just to give you a visual. So we've already talked about how to fix your curb appeal, the shared cost for all. Next slide, please. Okay. Worst case scenario. This is important, everybody. This is what we've seen in some of our cities. This is bulk, okay, construction. Now, obviously, if anyone wants to do a remodel of their home, they should go get a permit through the building department, and they should be told at that point, you know, they need to get a roll-off container in their driveway, for example, to put that type of debris in. The bulk would be the furniture you see there. If somebody has an old trash can and they put some brush in there, that's okay. We're doing that, we'll pick that, but they're not getting the trash can back. Does that make sense? They've made a decision that everything on the curb goes if it's accepted material, okay? The lower photograph there on the corner, you can see where somebody was convicted potentially. They decided to have a massive clean out of sorts, and they put loose debris, mixed trash bag, and things like that. So some people will take advantage of that setting out on the curb, whatever they choose. The rule is, if it can fit in your waste cart, loose, please put it in the waste cart, okay? We use a grapple truck to pick up this debris, okay? That grapple truck can grab about 3 cubic yards in one grab, okay? So 3 grabs would be that 6 cubic yards, double that for the 12. And looking at Rockport and looking at similar communities, my suggestion, if you do want to entertain that, would be maybe doing 12 cubic yards, because that gives you the ability to have some brush and some bulk, okay? Next slide, please. Okay, there's an example. That's about 10 cubic yards right there of brush, just to give you an idea, okay? Give or take. Next slide. Okay, there's your current service map by zone, okay? That entails your solid waste, the recycling services, okay, and the days of the week that we service each zone. We would potentially try to mirror that for the yard waste if you added it. Or we might decide to divide the city in 2 and keep it simple and say that one week we're doing this half of the city and the other week we're doing the other half. There's a lot of different options there. Next slide. Okay. So the opportunities ahead of us, once again, no action tonight. But I would suggest you give your interest levels to staff and have them back for a future workshop sometime in March. And let's talk about this. And I can get some firm numbers at that point. Okay? The CPI that we mentioned, we have about 1.5 years left on our contract term, the current one that we're in. I don't want to see a water, sewer, trash CPI get radical for this October, for example, and future ones. So I've been given the ability to offer a consideration of keeping a low, law of average, fixed rate for the duration of the contract and moving forward from early renewal so that y'all can plan and budget accordingly. No one's caught off guard. If you consider an early renewal for 5 years, which is the common length of our contract term, then we can potentially waive the residential portion of the CPI for this October in 22. Therefore, your constituents wouldn't have any rate adjustments or increases on our services until October of 2023. Okay? It's a crazy time right now. You're looking at all your utilities. Every city does. Sometimes there are increases. Sometimes there are more than others. Look at all of that. If we have to look at that and the service has been generally consistent and we do pick up the ball, we drop the ball, we're human. It's going to happen with equipment, drivers, what people put out, but we've always responded. We communicate well with your staff and with your residents. So we want to continue to do that. I think that's the last slide. Okay. I'll entertain any questions you have at this time.
Mike, I just want to appreciate it. Thank you for coming and giving that presentation to council and giving some ideas. I would love to see you come back and, of course, council's got to approve it, but, come back and give us some good numbers. I've got ballparks, but I think, as you alluded to, we do have the opportunity to take stuff out to the transfer station. But there are times, I think, when we don't just have our biannual leaves. And here in Rockport, or Range County, we have a lot of oak trees. And sometimes we're trimming trees, and I think it's nice to see some brush pickup. Probably not monthly, because as you said, the cover peel, we don't want that in town.
Yes, sir.
But I would like to see come back and present some more educated numbers on it, and both biannual and or quarterly. And if your recommendation is a 12-yard, then I guess goes to 6 and 12 options, but definitely, well, I'd like to see that in the future. And I really appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
And also the opportunities for early extensions and what cost savings and or the future could see.
Yes, sir. My pleasure.
Any other questions or comments? I know we've looked at this before, and previous councils, when we looked at brush pickup, one of the things was always a tipping point was how many people would use it as compared to only some of them using it, and yet everybody pays. So that's one of the reasons why we've never considered it. Is, at the time, I mean, it's been a while, but this is one of those old 20% of the people use it, but 100% pay for it. I think it builds the 80-20 rule, so one of the things we have to think about. Because everyone, I mean, our current rate is $23 a month.
Right under 23, yes, sir.
And so this what you're talking about, going to $32, potentially, depending on the service and the time.
Mayor, keep in mind, the numbers that I have up there were a little extreme or inflated, so they would definitely come down below that. So I can say that's safe. Y'all have a great evening. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it, sir.
Hey, Mayor, do you know if it's a short recess?
No, request for a recess, it's 8:04. 8:15?
Yes, thank you.
I'm 8:04 and we're recessed.
Okay, here we go.
Time is 8:16. Rockport City Council is back in session. Item 14, deliberate and act on approval of an interlocal cooperation agreement between Aransas County, Texas, and the City of Rockport, Texas, for municipal court prosecution.
I'll take it.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor, Council, currently our contract attorney, Dick Navarro, provides our prosecutorial services for municipal court, and this worked well during COVID when we Zoom some of those cases. But as you know, Dick Navarro is based out of San Antonio, and as we move back into a post-COVID economy, it just makes more sense economically to find a different way to do that. Dick Navarro's done a fine job, and as a matter of fact, I think this was probably brought to our attention by Dan to take a look at. Staff looked at it and talked to the county, and we think it's an efficient use of taxpayer money to do an interlocal with the county, to have the county provide prosecutorial services for our municipal court. So that's what this item is about. It's an interlocal with the county to provide prosecution on our court cases. Be happy to answer any questions.
Municipal court judges all on board?
Yes, sir. We sat down with them, shared the agreement with them, and they thought it was a good idea.
Thank you. Any other questions? And we did meet with the county attorney, and we met with Jeff Hutt.
In fact, I've done the county earlier today just to make sure the transition was smooth. And in fact, it's county JPs are providing, those are the court judges. And it is, so we have suggested this in other locations as well, just because it's efficient for our clients. And we took this on, it was because the former prosecutor stepped away, and Kevin contacted us, asked us if we could fill in during COVID, and so it was never our intention, because of the distance, to keep that prosecution services, because it's not efficient. It's just not cost effective.
We have a rough figure of what we're paying right now, what the city's paying right now for Navarro?
So what you've been paying for Jen Navarro has been, we've only done it for about 13 months. And so taking a 12-month snapshot, because I did that and provided it to Richard, so we have that information, so it was around 31 to 32,000. However, again, a lot of that was remote. Now that we're having to drive down here, that's when I contacted the city and said, this is not going to be good for you guys. We need to, and rather, you could have done, there's other ways you could have done this, right? You could have done an RFQ or just hired some local individual attorney to do this. I typically don't recommend that to our clients, simply because this is what the county attorney's office does. They prosecute misdemeanors, and they're in-house. They can put more time into it without any additional cost to the city if more time is needed. So it's I think they're going with a flat rate arrangement per month. So.
Yeah, we're looking at $25,000 a year. We could not hire an attorney to do that.
So we are realizing a cost savings coming from DRBZ, and then
You were realizing a small cost savings now, but I can assure you, with the courts opening back up, that number was only going to increase. That's why we wanted to try to get this transition as soon as possible to save you that.
clock starts in San Antonio, right? Travel time and
Well, it does now. We do give a reduced rate for that travel time because of the distance to the city, but still, on municipal court cases, you're not going to, not that they're about making money, but you don't want to be upside down either on your attorney costs for prosecuting those cases.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
So Richard, where does the funding come from for this?
Comes out of the general fund.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve agenda item 14 as written.
Second.
Motion from Ms. Tapper, second from Mr. Jackson. Any more discussion? Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2. Aye. Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Item 15, deliberate and act on an ordinance authorizing the issuance, sale, or delivery of City of Rockport, Texas general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2022, in the approximate amount of $13,360,000, securing the payment thereof by authorizing the levy of an annual ad valorem tax, and approving and authorizing the execution of a agent registrar agreement, an official statement, a purchase contract, and other instruments and procedures related thereto, and calling certain obligations for redemption. I have some folks that want to speak on this. I have a form from Patrick Kane, 1123 Cedar Street, Rockport. He has a statement to be read. The fiscal analysis on page 365 of the agenda packet should provide the public and council for the cost of refunding this debt. Stating the action is going to continue to preserve the existing INS tax rate isn't adequate, as this objective can easily be met by stretching out the payment term at additional interest to taxpayers. We know from the February 8th City Council meeting, the estimated total refinancing expenses for refunding the 2020 tax note is $208,010.27. We know from today's agenda packet, the outstanding principal is $13.36 million to be repaid over 8 years at 3%. We also know that an 18-year repayment term has been proposed. Though we don't know the interest rate until the refunding bond is issued, the city staff has enough information to provide a more meaningful estimate of what this action will cost the citizens. As an example, changing the repayment term from 8 to 18 years to the same 3% interest rate will incur an additional $2.3 million in interest charges. Even if the city were to receive a more favorable interest rate of 2.5%, we would still incur an additional $1.6 million in interest charges to stretch out the debt. When the council makes decisions that cost taxpayers millions of dollars, please make sure the agenda packet reflects this important information in the future. Kristie Rutledge.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, Kristie Rutledge, 1411 Dayton Drive. The last time that you discussed, you can start the timer. The last time you discussed this item, I mentioned to you that we had no idea how much this debt was going to cost us. I think that was just spoken about in the previous comments from Mr. Kane, and I agree. You all have no idea. And how can you make decisions, sound financial decisions, without having all of the information? You're elected to represent us, as we talked about earlier, and you don't have the information to really make a full decision or a good decision. If we keep going down this path, you're putting debt on your children, you're putting debt on my children's inheritance. Some of this debt is going to outlive some of us. This is going in the wrong direction. You got to get all the information and an entire plan before you make decisions like this. When the City Hall tax notes were first presented, it was not clear that this had to be refinanced. In fact, the idea that a short-term debt has to be refinanced is an indication right there that it's not affordable in the first place. Do we have any idea exactly how much this debt's going to cost? No, we don't. Do we have any ideas to be refunded in the future? We cannot continue to refund bonds over and over and over again. This is the pattern that the city has gone down. I've been doing some research within your documents. I'm having a hard time, getting complete information. But you all need a full picture of what all of the debt and all of the financial obligations are of the city of Rockport, and how much is it going to cost to repay, because this is our debt. This is the debt of the taxpayers, the property owners, and we are the ones that are going to be required to pay this through one way or another, our taxes, our utility rates, etc. And many of us are planning for our future. Hopefully we can retire someday if our appraisals and our taxes don't go up due to incurring all this debt. We see that stress in the federal level. Let's not do it here. I realize you've already approved this item. It's going to go through. It has to go through. But get all the information out on the table. Make sure if it's not given to you by city staff or by the financial advisor, that you pull it out of them. I was on that call on August 31st, 2020, when the tax notes were first discussed, and it took a long time for my councilman at the time, Bob Cunningham, to get the information out of the financial advisor. This City Hall tax note is not going to cost us $3 per household. The reality is much different, and we don't know what it is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Hutt.
Jeff Hutt, 2201 Prairie Road. Are we, with this agenda item, are we refinancing the 2020 City Hall tax notes into general obligation bonds? Is that a correct statement?
I'm sorry, I was distracted. What was the question?
Are we refinancing the 2020 City Hall tax notes into general obligation bonds?
Yes,
Tonight.
we discussed this in December. Yeah.
Are these,
The notes are not identified as City Hall tax notes.
okay, but they are tax notes.
2020 tax notes
Yes,
that are being refunding into the 2022 general obligation.
Are these tax notes what the state statutes refer to as anticipation notes?
I don't know. I'm not sure if we're supposed to be answering your.
I have,
Yeah.
okay, I can ask you guys. According to the Meetings Act, I can ask germane questions on an agenda item, and my germane, are these tax notes what the state statutes call anticipation notes?
I believe that's the term, tax anticipation notes, yes.
Why didn't we originally issue general obligation bonds in 2020 so we wouldn't have to refinance them 2 years later?
Know the answer to that, because we were petitioned and we couldn't go forward.
Okay. So we could issue general obligation bonds in August of we can issue general obligation bonds now in 22, but we couldn't in 2020. How is that possible? Nothing's changed but time.
Is that a question to me?
Yes, sir. Why can we issue general obligation bonds now in 2022, but we couldn't issue them
We're allowed
in
to
2020?
We're allowed to by the state, by statute.
Okay. Is this a finance plan that you intended when you passed the tax notes in 2020?
Refinance the tax notes, yes.
It was. Was that, is there an agenda item where that was deliberated on and voted on?
I don't remember. That's been quite a while. But when we were in discussion with this whole, you followed it very closely. You should know. I think you know the answer.
I don't know. I just want to know if there was an agenda item that approved refinancing.
We issued the debt with the understanding we were going to refinance it later because of the term of the length of the building. It will last us for 70 years.
Right, I understand.
We wanted to, not 70 years, obviously.
Right.
About
So you issued the tax notes to get around the voter so you could issue a general obligation bond later.
That's the way it worked.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I believe we have, gentlemen, you want to join us up here?
Just want to introduce, we've already introduced an agenda item.
Yeah, I guess I'll start, then Katie takes over. In preparation for this issue, anytime the city issues or is contemplating issuing debt, we go through basically a credit rating with the credit rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's. I'm pleased to tell you guys that our credit rating was improved from an A+ to a AA-. That is no small accomplishment. When these rating agencies take a look at a city, you dive into your financial status, your financial records management, and they rate you. And I think you guys are to be commended upon getting that rating increase. Because again, it is no minor thing. From an A+ to a AA-. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Good evening. So we're coming to you this evening and definitely take a responsibility for helping y'all to achieve the increased rating with S&P. It wasn't easy for y'all to do so, especially following so closely behind such a natural disaster that had such an impact on our community. So it's definitely been a benefit that we were able to overcome that and move forward with great strides. So thank y'all for helping us to make that happen. Tonight we come to you to do two different types of financial transactions. The first is to refund the 2020 tax note into the 2022 general obligation refunding. As we've talked many times, back in 2020 we did issue tax notes so that we could begin the construction for City Hall, as well as Concho Street drainage, as well as the Kia Lake Road Bridge easement. So those were the three big pieces that were associated with the 2020 tax note. During the time that that was issued, we put a 2-year call in there, which has allowed us to come back and do some refunding, having the opportunity to come back and refund if we needed to, or if there was another purpose for it. Due to our current economic environment and the excessive amount of increase in cost to do business and construction materials and labor, we did come to you and request that we make room for additional debt so that we could continue to move forward with the construction of City Hall. And in order for us to do that, which is part 2 of tonight's request, the 2022 tax note, we did have to do the call and request to do a refunding on the 2020 tax note. Tonight, we do bring to you the final numbers as they come to us earlier today. I'll let Mr. Henderson go into detail on that, and Mr. J. Juarez from McCall is here as well as bond counsel to answer questions that y'all may have that are a little bit deeper than what we normally understand in my office. But I just wanted to let y'all know that the numbers did come in well. We were able to keep our interest rate very low, below 3%, significantly below, and that's a lot to do with the rating that we received from S&P and our current operations and how we do business. I'm happy to answer questions, but I think it'd be best if we let Mr. Henderson and Mr. Russ talk before we ask any questions.
Thank you, Katie. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. For the record, my name is Robert Henderson. I'm the Managing Director with RBC Capital Markets and have the honor and the privilege of acting as the city's financial advisor. Before we get into the numbers, I want to reiterate what Mr. Morton said about congratulating you as an elected body and of course administration on this bond rating increase. You know, immediately following Hurricane Harvey, most of the county government, most of the governmental entities, schools, cities in particular, and counties saw their bond ratings decrease after Hurricane Harvey because of the impact it had. I have not researched this. This is just my personal feeling. I represent about 25 governmental entities from Houston, Beaumont area, all the way down south of here. This is the first one I know that's been increased since Hurricane Harvey. Getting that cross over the threshold from an A-rated category to a AA rated category is very important. Since the financial crisis of 2008-2009, there are no more AAA municipal bond insurance companies, which used to be, as Mr. Morton knows, very instrumental in getting the lowest possible interest rates. Now we only have AA rated municipal bond insurance companies. The fact that you guys went from a single A category, the high end of it, A+, to a AA, means that your credit is so good, you're equal to the credit rating of the municipal bond insurance companies. So you save money by not having to potentially insure your bond to get the lowest possible interest rate. I'm not going to read you the report. I know that it was distributed earlier, and I know that the newspaper got it. But I do, for the members of the audience that may not know this, want to cite three things that was written in that report. First of all, the rating increase is based on a maintenance of strong to very strong financial metrics and reserves. They noticed particularly positive budget variances, adding over $635,000 to your general fund balances in 2021. They also talked about how the annual growth in the tax base since Hurricane Harvey is at levels now that exceeded what the growth rate was before Hurricane Harvey. So all the work the city and the county jointly did to rebuild after Hurricane Harvey, to bring in federal and state monies and private monies to jumpstart our economy, to clean up our community and get going, has paid off, and the rating agencies are noting that, and even stronger growth rates that you have now since Hurricane Harvey than you had before. Finally, another quote in this thing says, although the city does plan for future debt, and I had a council person ask me about that. As you know, when we met with the city manager one-on-one with some council members, he presented a capital improvement plan of multiple millions of dollars. It was $49 million. Now, that's overstating it, because 18 million of that was meeting the requirements of upgrades to the gas system. So at least one council member spoke about, well, maybe keeping with some of the sentiment of the community, we can come back in May of 2023 and have a bond election. In the interest of transparency and honesty, which this city has always been famous for, we did speak to the rating agencies and let them know that when they asked about future debt, was there going to be any bond elections or any future debt? And the answer was, we may have a bond election in 2023 for amounts of money undetermined at this particular point in time. I go back to the quote. Although the city does have plans for future debt, or at least future bond elections, its debt and pension liability profile remains stable. So your bond rating is AA- with a solid, stable rating. That's very critically important in terms of the success that the city enjoyed this morning and taking the debt to the market. As we had discussed, and Katie touched on, as we discussed in length, when we sold the 2020 tax notes, there was a 2-year call put in there, the plan of finance that was discussed publicly at least 3 times. I was here personally for all those meetings, talked about the fact that if you needed additional debt, we're putting a 2-year call in there so that we can refinance this debt in order to accommodate future debt without a tax rate increase, as was the original plan for the certificates of obligation before the petition was filed. I have attended meetings here. I guess this is the 4th meeting since December the 30th that I've come here, and we've presented written plans of finance. We've discussed in detail extending the debt. We've given pretty solid estimates of what the tax rate, not only tax rate impact, which is going to be none, it's going to stay 18.43%, possibly slightly less, but what the additional interest cost would be affiliated with this. So now, the good news, to get to what Katie wants to know on. Our first agenda item relative to the debt is refunding of the 2020 tax notes into general obligation refunding bonds. The final maturity was extended to 2040. As you know from our previous meetings, the coupon rate on those bonds were 3%. The interest rate on the refunding is 2.82%. So we've actually got slightly lower interest rate than what we're paying before. Now, we are extending the debt, and because we're extending the debt, you are going to have higher interest costs over the life of the loan. There's 2 ways, as part of the Securities Exchange Commission rules, on how we communicate that in an environment like this. There's called gross savings or losses in this particular case, and then net present value. The difference is the gross interest rate cost is over the 18-year life of the bonds, and you net present value that back to 2022 dollars so that you can compare apples to apples. You are required by the statutes or the regulations, the Treasury regulations, to make that discount calculation at what's called the arbitrage yield on the bonds, which is actually lower than the 2.82 because you can't count cost of issuance. So it's discounted at a rate of 2.10 2.101. Because it's a lower discount rate, it causes your net present value calculation to go higher. So what are those answers? And I provided that to you in an email today. Additional interest cost on a gross dollar basis is $1,885,000. When you net present value that back to $22, it is $301,100 and some change. So slightly over $301,000. That is the cost, $2022, having extended the debt. And I will say this, had you not successfully gotten the AA- bond rating, it would have been higher than that. We had to pay a slightly higher interest rate. So we're very excited about that. Mr. Juarez is here. He is a partner with Tom Spurgeon, who you've met before, with Parkhurst Horton, the city's bond attorney. I can turn it over to him to actually discuss the ordinances, or if you have any questions on the numbers. I'm sorry, before I do that, Mayor. Also, a lot of discussion has been made about cost of issuance. We have provided publicly cost of issuance estimates twice. I wish I made the $500,000 people gave me credit for. I'd have retired at 25 years old if I had gotten $500,000 on transactions. Obviously, nobody gets paid that kind of money. But the interest rate, the cost of issuance information was also detailed to the City Council today. It is almost identical to what we talked about on February the 8th. It's not locked in stone only because the out-of-pocket expenses of the bond attorney nor myself have been calculated. You got to figure out how many miles it's going to take me to get back home, right? But they are within $1,000 of being absolutely final numbers. Happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Clarification, I know this item is the refunding, but you're talking about both.
Well, I can talk about both of them now, because I was just going to talk about the refunding and let them take action and then talk about the tax.
That's fine.
Council, any questions?
Not really a question, just, can you just explain to people why we didn't get the numbers until today, the final numbers of your?
Sure. Interest rates, markets, as all of us know who are watching the equity and debt markets, these interest rates change daily. Interest rates have actually come down a little bit just since last week because of the issues with Ukraine and so forth. So the process of issuing the debt is this. On the day we come to council, we authorize the underwriters, Raymond James and BLK Securities in this case, to go into what's called an order period. At 9:30 this morning, they sent out wires to individual investors saying, you want to buy 5,000 of this, you want to buy 10,000 of this, what have you. So they get indications of interest and actually get orders. That order period lasts about an hour and a half, and at 11 o'clock this morning, they came back to us as your financial advisor. So we think we can lower interest rates here, we can adjust maturities there, and so forth. Visit with the city manager, we get what's called an oral award, which is to say, not that it's a done deal, because everybody understands it takes city council action to make it a done deal. But only about 11 o'clock, 11:30 this morning, did we get the absolute final numbers, and they were virtually identical to the estimates that I had given you last February the 8th. Now they're locked into stone. Pending Mr. Morton's oral award, we had the documents drawn up. I don't know exactly what time Mr. Morris's firm got the final numbers included in the documents, probably 3 or 4 o'clock, something like that.
Earlier than that. Mid-afternoon.
Yeah, mid-afternoon. So that's why, you're not seeing absolute final numbers today, because they didn't get locked in until 11 o'clock this morning, and they weren't put into the documents till mid-afternoon. And this is normal operating procedure. It's just like if you were to sell, say you owned 100 shares of Exxon stock, right? And you call up your broker and you say, I want to sell my 100 shares of Exxon stock. And you say, well, what do you think I can get for them? And he's going to say, oh, right now it's trading at $98.15 a share. Well, by the time that order actually gets executed and you get your clearance statement, it may be up 15 cents from that, it may be down 15 cents from that. So we have been given very consistent and, in hindsight, highly accurate estimates on this all along, but it was only locked into stone as of about 11:15 this morning.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I just want to make sure that everyone understood the process.
I appreciate the opportunity to educate the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Plus, you know, I like to sound my own voice.
I got a quick one, Bob. I appreciate everything during this process of everything you've taught me, because you and I have definitely sat down and gone into the weeds on this stuff. And I appreciate it, and I appreciate all your candor on that. Just wanted to get that on the record.
I appreciate you. Any other questions?
I'm not sure if it's something you can do or if we're gonna ask Jay to do it. Can we talk them through the actual ordinance and all of the forms and that you've got in there?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Ms. Katie and Bob have both mentioned. My name is Jay Juarez. I'm an attorney with McCall, Parkhurst Horton, and it's my pleasure to be here this evening. So what you are doing tonight is taking action. This is the only time y'all will be taking action, or that this item will be coming to you guys. And after that, we will be taking all these documents that y'all are authorizing this evening to the Attorney General so that they can provide official sign-off on the transaction. If there are any deficiencies, shortcomings whatsoever, they'll tell us, we'll address them, and we'll get them signed off before closing. So those documents, as Katie was talking about, are the ordinance itself, of course, the paying agent registrar agreement, which is kind of the middleman between you guys and the bondholders, and a deposit agreement. And the deposit agreement kind of serves as an escrow agent in this regard, because upon closing, those funds will be deposited with the deposit agent for him to hold to pay off the tax notes. You are also authorizing a purchase contract with the investors. Bob mentioned that is Raymond James and BOK Financial. Several of the documents, me and Katie were talking about this earlier, still have blanks in them, and that's because those are only forms of documents. They're intended to give the party to the transaction an idea of what these documents will look like that are to be signed at a later date. So you have with you a closing package as well. It includes several documents that we are required to take to the Attorney General for approval. And if they have any blanks in them or exhibits that are missing, that is because those will come at a later date before the March 23rd closing. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have on the legal side.
Any questions for Jay? But I appreciate the detail and the explanation of the process.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve agenda item 15 as written.
Second.
For the motion, Ms. Hamlin, a second, Ms. Jackson. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. Thank you. Item 16, deliberate and act on an ordinance authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of city Rockport tax notes, series 2022, in the approximate amount of $8,120,000, payment thereof by authorizing the levy of an annual ad valorem tax, and approving and authorizing the execution of a paying agent registrar agreement, a purchase contract, an official statement, and all other instruments and procedures related thereto. And I have a participation form from Kathy Kane, 1123 Rockport. Has comments he wishes to be read into the record. The citizens' actions in 2020 to petition the City Hall certificates of obligation should have made it clear that we want new debt put on the ballot. We had ample opportunity to bring today's proposed debt to the voters. However, we haven't done so. Between the council's actions in 2020 and today, we will have almost double the city's debt without voter consent. The council and city staff need to plan for our future. What investments need to be made by the city over the next 10, 20, 30 years? I've heard estimates ranging from $25 million to $50 million in midterm needs. We need to prioritize these investments and phase them in over time so as not to raise the 0.184 interest and sinking tax rate. Develop a plan, seek public input, revise your plan, and bring it to the voters in the form of general obligation bonds. And we have Jeff Hutt.
Jeff Hutt, 2201 Prairie Road. Are these tax notes that is in this agenda item, are these what referred to in the state statutes as anticipation notes? It is, yes, sir. And these are being issued, it says therefore securing the payment therefore by authorizing the levy of an annual ad valorem tax. Is that correct? That's correct on there?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. The reason I ask is because in the state statutes for the anticipation notes, 1431.008, ad valorem taxes as a source of payment. A government body may not issue anticipation notes that are payable from bonds secured by an ad valorem tax unless the proposition authorizing the issuance of the bonds is approved by a majority of the voters to states that anticipation notes may be authorized. Can you explain to me how we are able to authorize anticipation notes backed by ad valorem taxes when the state statutes clearly says to do this, you have to go in front of the voters?
Mayor, would you like our bond attorney?
Please. Or could you answer that?
Yeah, the answer to the question is that these are not payable from bonds, they are payable from the ad valorem tax themselves. This is a common structure that's been used countless times by multiple issuers. So that's the answer to the question. It's not secured by bonds. Thank you. Taxes themselves.
So this is, again, I'm bringing to you the second part of our financing items tonight. Again, we are bringing to you, this is for debt for the City Hall. This is our 2022 tax note we're bringing to you. There's multiple pieces to that. The key piece is the shortfall where we were not quite enough money to do just several different items, but mostly the cost of the increased cost of materials and equipment and labor for the City Hall construction, as well as we discussed back in the budget cycle, we are asking for a tax note so that we can do our vehicle and equipment replacement fund. We did do all the lists previously of the vehicles and equipment that are lined up, and some of those will come back to you within the next month or so that are in excess of $50,000. So you'll actually have to take an action on those because they require your action. So we will be back with that list of vehicles that are in that category. Again, the purpose of this item is to provide the financing that we need. It does act as a tax note. It also will help us, it does maintain our existing tax rate of just over 18 cents, just under 18.5 cents to be more exact. And we do fall within the statutes. This does work for City Hall. One of the items that we discussed is that not only do we have City Hall under construction, but we also have our municipal courthouse under construction. That's a key factor in how we are doing the finance structure. Mr. Henderson and Mr. Juarez are here to answer more questions for you all tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Henderson again, with RBC Capital Markets. I'm going to skip a lot of the preliminary comments. The difference between this and the refunding, of course, is the refunding only paid off the old debt. This is new money. It's going to go into your bank account. It says the approximate amount of $8,120,000. Actually, that's the exact amount, $8,120,000. And that is what's going into your acquisition construction fund. Cost of issuance and other things are being paid out of premium on the transaction. So you will actually see a deposit into your acquisition construction fund of $8,120,000. The interest rate on this debt, 2.72%. So slightly less than the refunding debt. The reason it's not more or less than the refunding debt has to do with the call features on this.
As we've discussed many, many times, the call feature in the 2020 transaction, as was discussed with the public in 2020, was a 2-year par call. We do not feel like there's a need to do that here. We are looking now, after extensive conversations with your city manager, at a 4-year call. So these bonds would be callable in February 15th of 2026. What's important to know about that is that you do have some short, useful life items in here, $1.9 million for the vehicle equipment. I'm not going to place a life on the dispatch system, but that's $835,000. You will have paid off that amount of principal before these bonds are even called. So there's an assurance there to the citizens and to you, of course, that all your short, useful life items will have been already paid for before this debt is even called. As we had discussed in 2020 with respect to that tax note, we do not anticipate, in fact, unless your tax base takes a major hit, your tax rate's going to be 18.35 instead of 4.3. So we would not anticipate any kind of tax rate increase with this at all, unless you guys come back and decide to have this general obligation bond election that we've talked about, potentially for May of 2023. You have some latitude financially to do some things to minimize or even potentially eliminate the tax rate impact then, but if you don't have that bond election, or if the bond election fails, there would be no tax rate increase, and there would certainly be no need to refinance this short-term note, although, again, based on the average useful life of the $5.4 million that's being spent on the courthouse, on the city hall rather, you would certainly have that latitude under state law in terms of weighted average and that sort of thing. So to be clear, we're talking about 2.72% interest rate. The final numbers were provided earlier today. We've got them on screen if anybody wants to see them. I'm happy to answer any questions. 4-year call instead of a 2-year call this time.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a real short statement, please?
A statement?
Yes. I want to speak to my council rep. Do you mind?
I'm sorry?
I would like to speak to the council rep on this. Short, do you mind? Brad can invite me to speak if you want to speak. You're my council.
Mr. Kane, I invite you to speak.
Thank you, Brad. Andrew Kane, 2106 Lakeview Drive. We'd be amiss, but we're having a conversation of another $5.4 million for the city hall. If we don't go back to Mr. Henderson's comments and advice to y'all as a financial planner. February of 2020, Mr. Henderson said the city hall has an estimated citizen participation of $4 million. So in February 2020, our financial advisor said $4 million is in city owns.
For what?
For our February 2020 city council meeting, you told city council the estimated citizen cost of city hall will be $4 million.
I'm not, citizens' cost?
The taxpayers' cost, the city's cost.
City's cost.
Would be $4 million.
We did not have a conversation in February of 2020 in City Hall. That was a city workshop on a long-term capital improvement program.
I've read it in the city minutes, so I can send it to you. 2020, February, we were told the citizens, our city's estimated participation in the City Hall project would be $4 million. In July, 8/10, when Bob Cunningham first heard about it, it blew his mind. July, August, we petitioned it. We said, this is getting too expensive. The citizens were saying, we need to get this to a vote. COVID, rising construction costs. Same year, 7 months later, you passed a $13.5 million debt. Same year, we were estimated $4 million. Today, another $5.4 million. We're throwing millions and millions. I think the city hall is up to $23 million. My point here, thank you, is the experts, the council, there's 3 that voted for it. You got it wrong. The citizens got it right. When we petitioned it, we warned it was a soaring project. When is enough enough? 4 million, 5 million, 10 million, 23 million, sir. Thank you.
Good point.
Council, any questions for Mr. Henderson or Mr. Flores?
Mr. Wars, real quick, this is pretty much the same types of documents being addressed in each ordinance?
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly right. The process is exactly the same. The one document that you're not going to have for this transaction is the deposit agent agreement, and that's just because you all aren't refunding any bonds for this.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Make a motion to approve item 16 as presented.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Brundrett, second from Ms. Kathy. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Henderson, Mr. Horace, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Explaining all this.
Thank you.
Item 17, reports from council. You want to go first?
I have nothing.
I'm good.
I just want to make aware on Inverary and St. Andrew's Place that we're having major sinkholes being repaired. It's actually improving the Tuscan Villas, so that's what they're doing, filling the sinkholes in and fixing those. So I know kind of inconvenient to some people, but just want to make sure that's not out there.
And just a couple of real quick updates. I know our COVID count is most recently, this is February 22nd, is 3,129 confirmed cases, 836 probable, 76 fatalities. Another thing that we have here is the Coastal Bend Council of Governments will be awarding up to $180 million in mitigation grants this spring. So this is a great opportunity for the city of Rockport to get some funding for our projects. These funds do not require matching funds, which is really important. The only other thing that probably does hopefully as much as the county issued the burn ban effective this week, dry weather. So just keep that in mind. That's it. That's what I have here. Moving on to executive. City Council executive session pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code in accordance with the authority contained in Item 18, Section 551.071, consultations with attorneys seeking advice of attorney about pending constitutional litigation or a settlement offer, and on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, the State Bar of Texas, clearly conflicts with this chapter. Concho Street Training Project. The time is 9:04 and we're in executive session.
Was that cord get from
That's a awkward spot. Yeah. Wait for Dan.
I don't have to wait. Yeah, we don't even.
The time is 7:37 and Rockport City Council, excuse me, the time is 9:37. Rockport City Council is back in session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, if it was 7:37, that'd be awesome.
I don't know who gets.